Hey y'all. I didn't know that that the recording had started. Hey. Um okay, now they have another feature. So I'm going to do what I do, the little ritual every week, come in and invite you all so that you'll know that I'm here. Welcome to the G Spot Live with yours truly, LaTanya Taylor. For those of you who are just joining the group, welcome to the group. And also, this is me, known as the Rev Coach, the Juicy Spirit Mama. I'm sorry I sound a little distracted because I'm trying to multitask and invite people here. You know how we have to set up. As woke as many of us say that we are, it's so easy to fall into the whole holiday humdrum. I know that this time of the year, my body has been reprogrammed for some time now to wind down. Even when I worked in a 9-to-5 in corporate America, especially because of the type of programs that I did, it usually always involved students and schools and that type of thing. This would be the season that parties would be happening. It would be the wind down time, so to speak, right? There would be more parties on your calendar, more vacations. So my body is in a habit of wanting to wind down. So you know that when we were in Costa Rica, it definitely was an amazing experience to be on the beach in November. And ever since then, now I definitely have a non-traditional response to not just coming to do the same old thing, the same old way, the holidays. Now, prior to that, because you all know that I've been long away from the religious rituals of it all, because I've been awakened to what it really means long before. So I took more of a hard line where I did not, for a long time, celebrate Christmas. And because I did that based on what I knew and religion and all of that good stuff, I actually spent many years not attending a lot of family get-togethers because part of me was just a little bit too rigid to see how to do that. Plus, the family puts pressure on you sometimes to participate, particularly with gifts, even if you say, hey, listen, Christmas is not my thing. I don't believe in Christmas. You know, the love of my family would definitely want me to get a gift. Hey, everybody, thanks for saying hello, for coming in. So even when I stopped celebrating Christmas in the traditional way, there were years where, you know, I didn't go home for that, but I would do other things. So then, as I got free from religion and being religiously rigid, I started to go home more and realize how many years I had missed just fellowshipping with the family, you know, just having a good time with the family. When I found my balance, I was able to balance myself in my participation with my family. And so now, because of living abroad and having a whole different experience, I definitely embrace the season on my terms now. And what I look at as a metaphysician and as a teacher is energy. You know, there's a part of us that really like this season because we get a chance to see our family members. There is some part of the season that is just fun. It's happy, it's jolly, and of course we say that it's Christ, and some people do bring in that religious piece of it and reject the origins. Many people have rejected the origins of Christmas, and particularly if you've been trained traditionally Christian, you tend to overlook the and call it pagan. So on your own time, look up the history of the Festival of Lights. Look up the history of who Saint Nicholas was. Some of you may be very shocked in terms of those of you who say that you're woke, but you still embrace a Santa Claus type reality, that type of thing. But what I pay attention to most of all in this season of really honoring the divine feminine and devoting myself to the divine feminine is the energy of the season. Just like Thanksgiving brings in the mindfulness of gratitude, there is something very special about this season in terms of giving and receiving. You know, we talk about the giving and receiving of this season, right? Some of you still participate in gift-giving rituals. Now, some of you also acknowledge Kwanzaa, and so you may take a more purposeful look at it in terms of, which is also man-made, right? The point of the matter is any tradition, any ritual can be man-made. You can ritualize anything and it becomes a tradition. Some of your families have a Christmas brunch. Some of your families get together Christmas Eve and you open up gifts at another house. So those are rituals, right? But when I'm talking to you today from the place of the goddess, and for the women who are growing forth in goddess and the divine feminine, I want to ask you for real. Are you turned on during this season in the way that you participate? Are you turned on during this season? Or are you stressed out, running around, trying to get gifts, trying to prepare your house, or get a ticket to go home, or already got a ticket and have to travel somewhere? Or is this pleasurable? Is it really pleasurable for you, or is it a sense of duty? I have to do this. Or if I don't do this, my mother's gonna be upset. If I don't do this one is not gonna like it. It's, oh well, I'm just doing it for the kids. Some of you say, I don't want my kid, even though I know all that, I don't want my kids to suffer because everybody else is celebrating the holidays. And so my question to you is, does that turn you on? Does that state of mind, that reality turn you on? Because it's very easy when you get caught up in family stuff, particularly family rituals, to lose the idea of pleasure being something at your core. Now, I haven't talked a lot about pleasure, but this month I'm going to end the year on the note of pleasure because in the masterclass series, one of the things that I skipped was the power of the pussy specifically. How can we have the master series, the power of the P, and not talk about pussy and what pussy really is? Because I said in the title above that pleasure is a gateway, but pussy is also a gateway, and it's a gateway but for a reason. Let me talk about that a little bit without giving away the strategy for the masterclass. I encourage you to join the masterclass right off the bat before I even get into this topic, because and that's bit.ly/MyGspot is only $29. Next year will be a whole new focus, and it's going to be deep. It's going to be all 12 months. I'm going to be releasing something so powerful that's connected to the power of the P in relationship to our money. Okay, all year. And so how can I finish the year and forget about pussy? Because many of us hear that word and we're still uncomfortable with that word pussy. I admit that there's a part of me that when I say it in the room with turned on goddesses, I feel the full power of it. When I say it sometimes in the room with women who are still waking up to what it means, I still feel a little something like, okay, I don't want them to, the mother in me, the nurturer in me is like, how are they taking the pussy? Because many of us have been offended by pussy, traumatized by pussy. Many of us don't have a healthy relationship with pussy from the idea of it being sacred. So the idea of pussy has been defined by somebody else. So when we say the word, sometimes the resonance of it is still connected with the patriarchal, pathological, pornographical, degenerative view of what pussy is. But as a goddess, particularly in the way that I teach it, we open up pussy from the place of pleasure, because as women we have a vulva, and vulva is called by many names, and many of us don't call it a name at all. We don't talk about it. But when we talk about pussy, we're the one creature that has 8,000 nerve endings that is designed for pleasure. Us. There are other animals that have pussies, but they don't necessarily have a whole pleasure center that is wired. And so this is important because it's an uncomfortable conversation. And let me tell you, my intention is to keep it as light as possible. But how can you talk about pleasure and not go deep? I understand that there are a lot of women who are talking about pleasure now. When I first started teaching this, there was not a lot of women talking about it, especially not a lot of black women. And so now, as it just like Bitcoin, just like cryptocurrency, now that people are seeing other people doing it, now you see more women talking about sensuality and sexuality and all this thing, right? But if you've worked with me, I come from the spiritual, the metaphysical of everything that I'm doing. Yeah, honey, go deep. How about that? Because that's what we want. When we start talking about pleasure, it's nothing like saying go deeper. When we start talking about being made love to, yes, there is some pleasure on the outside. There is the foreplay. But when we really get down into it, we want to be made love to in the deep crevices of our yoni. We want that lingam to touch inside places. Why? Because there are still nerve endings there. There are places inside the womb that must be activated, and that is why size matters. Now let me tell you, I'm using these terms, and I'm gonna go deeper into the connection to our pleasure, because in this holiday season, a lot of times we're not looking at our turn on. Many times we're looking to please or to be pleased. And so let's talk about number one. Managing your expectations around pleasure. Should your pleasure expectations ever be met? Isn't it ironic? Listen. Yes, the broadcast did get interrupted. Let me know if you see me clearly before I go deeper. Let me know if you see me clearly before I go deeper. Somebody let me know if my broadcast is coming in. I know what it was. Isn't this something? You know me, I can teach, preach on anything. But I notice sometimes when I put the plug in, the phone heats up. Ironically, I noticed that when we were talking about how the lingam being plugged into the yoni going deeper, right? The plug, right? I can't make this stuff up. Can y'all see me? That's what, oh good. Okay. So listen, when we're talking about the pleasure, thank you. I'm finally getting them. You probably typed them almost 3 or 4 minutes ago, but now it's finally coming in. I see that you see me. Okay, pleasure as a gateway during this season. This is the season to, as a goddess. For those of you who are learning about the divine feminine, come into the monthly masterclass series. I promise I won't pop your cherry. I will get you turned on. I don't want to pop your cherry yet. I want you to come in and wet your whistle. But those of you who have already had your whistle wetted, those of you who are already hydrated, whether it has been through studying with me, you still have to be mindful of whether you are turned on or you are on automatic, or whether you are just going through the motions, because this is the beginning of managing your expectations for pleasure. Because I know for me, even when I wasn't celebrating the holidays in a traditional way, because my sister knew that I'm the one who likes to cook. I like to entertain. I like to cook. So she would start calling weeks in advance to put the menu together, what to get. And I'm like, girl, We having the same thing that with mama been cooking since me and you been on the planet. You know, now I can see if I was doing something different, and sometimes I was, but for the most part we had the basics. You got to call me to get that. So anyway, so it will start there, and then it would be all of the getting ready to get ready, and that would be work. I'm not gonna lie to you. And I noticed that I started to become exhausted, where I really could not enjoy myself because I was exhausted from all of the running around and then all of the cooking. Even though I enjoy cooking, my joy turned into work. And so I started to propose to my family before we ever moved to Costa Rica. Why don't we take a family cruise? Why don't we rent a villa and meet up as a family? But nobody really was interested in my family in terms of doing it. I know other families who do it almost every year. Every other year they'll plan a getaway as a family. And so I really wanted my family to do that. So here I am once again, the different one, who is proposing a different way of doing things. And it would frustrate me when they would just shoot it down and want to just be stuck in their ways. Well, it was also an invitation for me to chart my own course, to create my own tradition. And like I said, once I got to Costa Rica, I cannot tell you about the turn on that it felt to have the sun shining on me, to be half naked on the beach, totally chilled out. And literally, when I tell you that move broke everything in me that I had been attached to, it did. I'm saying to you, you can do that through the pleasure as a gateway. You don't have to. Some people don't want to. It's joyful. Everybody cooks. Everybody is playing. But what about your turn on? Are you turned on? Because oftentimes with women, when it comes to our pleasure, it's easy to slip back into the mode of making sure that other people are pleased. Because many of us have been programmed when it comes to our relationship with a mate how do y'all say it? I don't say this anymore, but how have we been trained to say it? I gave him some. I gave him some. Well, or he ain't gonna get none. But what about you? What about your getting? Because oftentimes we see pleasure as something that we give away to someone else instead of pleasure as something that we receive on our terms. So if we start with number one, managing our expectations. Number two is, are you participating in any activities that turn you on, that bring you pleasure and joy, that light you up from the inside? Or are you just going through the motions? I already explained that. And so number three, when we start talking about pleasure as a gateway, I cannot tell you how, when I first, so anybody that's my friend for many years that watches this broadcast can testify that, and I've told this story before, we always talked about pleasure. We always studied orgasm. We always went deeper into yoni and frilly things and girly things long before I really understood that I was home in my space of the Divine Mother, right? And so when I started teaching this, initially when I started teaching this, it was when I personally discovered how spiritual this work is. And I'll explain that. What I mean by that is, a lot of times pleasure can be a trigger word for people who have not been pleased. It can be a trigger word for people who still have sin consciousness. Pleasure can be a trigger word if you have trauma. Pleasure can be a trigger word if it's limited to God not being in pleasure. It's something that's manipulative or deceptive. Pleasure can also be an invitation word for those who are seeking or chasing orgasm. Because most of the time when we have not really, I'm not asking you to comment, but if we were in a space and we started talking about orgasm, I would bet that there would be more than half of you here who have not experienced orgasm on your own without a toy, and not to mention that some sisters absolutely feel funny about using a toy. So your orgasm is something that is attached to somebody else giving it to you, if you happen to have it at all. Particularly if you're in a relationship where you're having sex just to keep your partner. Because some of you are in relationships where you're not happy, but yet you have sex with your beloved because you don't want the beloved to go and stray off. Y'all know that whole teaching of, well, if he's not getting it at home, he's going to get it from somewhere else. And some of you who are in same-sex relationships believe the same thing. And so we participate already from let's tell the truth. Many of us participate in our sexuality from a place of unconsciousness, from a place with attachments to religious concepts, even if the religious concept is that my reward is from God. Well, listen, I am one who did not have sex the very first time I got married until I got married. And I tell this story in a lot of my classes, because I was called long before I accepted my call to ministry. And I remember my mother saying to me when I told her, well, I haven't had sex with him yet. She said, what? You gonna buy the cow before you drink the milk? And I said, well, yeah, because at that time, she wasn't my God. I was connected to another God source in reality for me at that time. But I will tell you that even if you followed all the rules, how many of you followed all the rules when it comes to your sexuality? You may have been a virgin until you got married, and then when you get married, there's stuff you don't know or things that you bump into. So when it comes to pleasure, there's so many contradictory messages out here in these streets, even in the churches and in the mosque. Okay, I oftentimes go in on the church contradictions, but honey, I have a whole list of stories to tell you about the mosque, because I'm just gonna say this unedited. Okay, I was long married and in headpieces and coverings. And I had no idea how many people was screwing, because I chose another way. This group is called Good Girls Gone Goddess for a reason. I didn't just make this up. This is a part of my testimony. This is a part of my coming out. This is a part of my healing. This is a part of my transformation. So I'm not coming in here to ask you all to do something, to experience something, to explore your boundaries, to push your limits, because I have done it. And that is why I'm butterfly, because it may be, let's put it in Christian language. I have been like Paul. I've had to die daily. I've had to die daily. I've been crucified. I've died. I've had to die. I've feared crucifixion, and I rose again. And that is why one of my favorite messages to teach is the 7 last words, because the 7 last words is a code for so much more. And I did a whole little YouTube video. I'll have to find it. Maybe I'll post it in the comments if you're interested, about where is Jesus in Juicy. And so listen, pleasure is a gateway. Pleasure is a gateway. I'm not telling you this so you can go teach it. I'm telling you this so you can live it. I'm telling you this because those of you who started the journey to exploring your pleasure, you found out that there were limits that you had that you didn't know about, or that you forgot about, or that got stored in the library of your mind. But even our womanhood has a library, and many of us are operating off of files that are outdated, files that are incorrect when it comes to not just how we relate to our mate, but how we relate to our sensuality, mind, body, and spirit. And so listen, the body is also a geteway. And when a woman does not have a relationship with her body, then she will start to break down. There will be disconnection with even participate. You can be married and have had children and still be disconnected because of you don't have a relationship with the body. In the church, we are taught to condemn the flesh. To condemn the flesh. And so when you come from a philosophy of condemning the flesh, you don't trust your desires. You don't trust what it is that's coming up. You don't trust what you're attracted to. You don't trust when you're not attracted to something. And so when you are taught to condemn the flesh, then you don't give yourself what it is that you're craving. And when you start to do that on a body level, and listen, it shows up in our relationship to food, because we don't have a healthy relationship with what really brings us joy. Many of us are walking around overweight or obese or whatever the case may be, or malnourished, because we do not know how to get in the body. Denise, I see you in here. She said, I was so disconnected from my body for so many years. I don't think it's an accident that you are a yoga teacher. And maybe you can join me here on the, in fact, why don't you just press that little window down at the bottom? I want you to come in and share a little bit about what you just said. I was so disconnected from my body for so many years, because when I first started the practice of sacred sensuality and literally learning from one of my master teachers, who is from he's from Australia, but he lives in India. And I had no clue when I first started. I started from the idea of, oh yes, I'm feminine and all of that stuff. Being feminine, being in pleasure is not just about going to get your hair done. Being feminine and being in pleasure is not about how many stylists can dress you and how many cute pictures you can take on YouTube. All right, I said on YouTube, but on Facebook. Being in pleasure, being a queen becomes something that's so self-righteous. You know, I was in another community. It's starting to connect. It's taking its time. There you go. I'm gonna finish this and then bring you right on. It's many of us, I've been in communities, other communities that teach healthy eating, that teach fasting, that teach all of the principles to cover your head and all those things. But then it becomes a whole nother. And I'm in other circles where people call each other queens and divas, and it's all about the looking good and the feeling. But on another level, it doesn't go deeper. And and so I love what you just said, and I wanted to bring you on because you are a yoga instructor, Denise, and I'm telling you, I had no idea how yoga brings you so in touch with the inner conversation about your body.
Yeah.
Is that where you started, you discovered when you started your yoga practice, or
Yeah,
where was it for you?
absolutely.
When you got
Right
reconnected?
before, um, uh, what happened was I was on a plane, and I passed out on the plane ride. And after I
I'm
went to
doing
the
some hot.
doctor,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I went to the doctor, and the doctor asked if I was stressed, and I was like, I don't think so, but clearly.
Uh-oh, I lost Denise. I don't know how. Denise is beautiful. Can you all still see me? I want her to come back. She said something key. Can you let me know if you all can see me? She said something very key. She's can you hear me though? I know she's gone. Come back in. Let me invite you. Let me see. Yeah, come back in again. Okay, thank you. Tommy said, yes, we see you. I love how you wrote that. Yeah, she's coming back on. Denise is going to come back on. You have to have a really good connection. And I don't know, for some reason, they are still working on the towers in my area. Lucky me, right? And I definitely can't go outside because it's so cold. But she said something so key about stress. When it comes to this season, pleasure is a gateway for you to de-stress. A good orgasm, and I mean, listen, oh God, I'm keeping it general in here, but let's just say in my classes, I get a lot more specific, don't I, ladies? You don't have the option to come back on? Let me see if I can bring you back on. It must be your signal to come back on. Oh, there you go. We won't be defeated. We're going to stay the course. We're going to do it.
Can you hear me?
All right. Yes. Finish what you were saying about you didn't know you were stressed. You went to the doctor.
Went to the doctor. Doctor asked if I was stressed. I told her I didn't think so. And she's like, I think that might be it.
You froze.
So I Googled how to manage stress and saw yoga as one of the options. And that's what led me to take my first class. And so I took a class, and I remember at the end of the class, I'd never felt myself in that way before. And I was just like, I've never felt this way before. And that's when I realized that I was not aware of just how I was feeling in my body until that moment. So yoga absolutely was the thing that actually started me to my body.
Wow. I never heard you share that.
Yeah.
As much stuff as we've done together, I never knew that you actually went to a doctor and the doctor recommended yoga. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And of course, then you start, I think that's short around the time we connected. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I started.
I don't know if you all can hear her. Yes. Okay. Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Do you have any suggestions for ladies how they can, do you have any suggestions for turning on through yoga?
I think one of the most fun experiences for me with yoga was when we were able to freestyle and it not necessarily be a guided thing, but we just played music and we just allowed our bodies to move. And in between moving, you would do poses, but it was really just about moving along with the music and how you were feeling, not just listening to what you were told to do, but getting in touch with how you were feeling, how did the music make you feel. And so any kind of classes like that, or like sensual yoga classes, they have those too. I think that is another way not to just take yoga as a way to exercise or for stress relief, but really to connect to your body. And as a woman, things like sensual yoga, I think that's really important because it allows you to connect to that deeper level.
Well, I think you'll probably be teaching us something like that soon. Yeah. But you're right. I in Costa Rica, my very first consistent yoga practice, she put on music, and exactly what you described. And it was so amazing. Let me tell you what was funny for me was to be in a room full of Costa Ricans who don't have any rhythm and not have my rhythm thrown off. Yeah. So that required that I had to get deeper into myself, into my center, and not focus on what anybody else was doing. Yeah. I had to go within, to some points, close my eyes and just let my body go. And even when I have done belly dancing, I found how stiff I was. And you wouldn't think, as much as I like to twerk, and I'm from the South, so you drop that bass, baby, it's on, little bass. But when it belly dancing, I felt like a white girl. Because there's always going to be, ladies, there's always one side of your body that is dominant. And that is a message that a lot of times, I bet a lot of you women who are used to being in control, a lot of you who are bossy, and very identified through your masculine, your right side is stronger than your left side. And so when we're talking about this movement and de-stressing and yoga, I really highly recommend for women who, because it's, let's talk now, and jump in at any point, Denise, let's talk now on a medical level where if we've been taught to condemn the body, and look at this, y'all, in terms of Christianity or any of the traditional religions, if we've been taught to crucify ourselves and our desires, what message does that send to your body when it's time for you to heal? Because we also say that words have power, and that there is power in the spoken word. And so when that sets up a conflict in the subconscious mind on what it is that we say we desire. Now, when we talk about the body on another level, if the blood is not flowing, many of us, we think that our relationship with love, sex, and money has a lot to do with other people, them, and conditions and circumstances. But one of the things that I found whenever I did any kind of workout program, but in particular yoga, because Denise, I assumed that it was easy when I went in. I assumed so much, looking at like, oh, I want to do that. That's so zen. I had no idea the inner strength that is required to get into poses. And so I met my inner conversation. I met the part of me that wanted to quit. I met the part of me that wanted to get it right and be perfect. I met the part of me that felt that was competing with another part of me. There were sessions where I wanted to lay out and just cry. And when I told my yoga instructor that, she said, actually, that's what yoga is supposed to be. The yoga is that if you feel like crying, that you're supposed to do that. And if you feel the anger, be with the anger and still move into the next pose. I got that. I'm in the zone, Denise.
You are, yes.
I'm just checking with an expert because I'm so humbled by it, and I thought it was perfect that you were available to come on today, because when we talk about this season, people carry a lot of stress during this season, and we medicate the stress with food, with alcohol, and with running. And then many of you who are still working a 9-to-5 job, you go back to work tired. So thank you so much for joining us and validating us getting in the body. Would you like to share anything else about getting in the body?
I think that, more importantly than just the yoga practice, it really is connecting with yourself. And that's, yoga allowed me to do that. But it really, when I began doing work with you, it took me from just doing a practice or listening to instructions and like moving with the flow of my body. And so, and like touch, I think is so important. Like when you begin to touch your body, that's another level of connection that just moving it doesn't do. And so, touching yourself, that is a powerful way to connect,
Yes, some people will, when you're with your family and they're getting on your nerves, you might want to just go take you a little bathroom break and turn on the blower and go masturbate. I don't call it masturbation in my process, but many of you know that term, so I use it. But I call it self-loving. And if you have a challenge with self-loving, inbox me. There are still women who do not, and there are some teachers who don't like the idea of using toys. But I believe that an orgasm is an orgasm is an orgasm. And any way you want to get it, you get it.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing that a woman needs is conditions on how she gets her orgasm. Because when you can't manually bring yourself to orgasm, sometimes there's a frustration and you think that you're doing it wrong because of the manual stimulation. But I do recommend, for those of you who use toys a lot, is that you give the toys a break, and that you learn how to receive touch in a way that will that will stimulate the nerve endings to be sensitive again. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. There's a Juicy You coming up in January, honey. January, February, we're going to be doing a new round of Juicy You, 30 days living in your sweet spot. You'll see that the journey is a lot deeper than a lot of times we give it credit. So I don't want to do that kind of teaching here, but I think I've dropped enough into this space for you to consider your turn on. And so be mindful. I'll close out with just saying, be mindful of pleasing during this time, and she's gone. Thank you for joining, Denise. Anybody else that wants to add anything? There's some sensual divas in this space who are unapologetic and unashamed. But I want you to be mindful of what you're prioritizing during this season and why. Why are you doing what you're doing? And pleasure is a gateway for you to see your relationship first with yourself. I like to believe that pleasure is a gateway for you to improve your relationship with God, but a lot of times people don't know that at first. When women do give themselves permission to explore pleasure, you usually come for whatever your reason is, and that's okay. And then I take you right to the sacred. So get ready for January. We're going to close out with December with the power of the P, with the emphasis on pussy in the master class. This is a great time. 'Tis the season to be turned on, tuned in, and tapped into the power of your womanhood and going into the new year. 2018 is already being called the year of ascension, but not just the year of ascension. Actually, it is specifically the year of women ascending, by the way. 2018 is the year of women ascending. So I'll share a little bit more about that later. So please join us in the monthly masterclass. It's every third Thursday. I'm gonna, yes. I'm looking forward to sharing with you. I don't even know if it's the third Thursday tomorrow. I hope not. If so, I might have to change the date just because I've been put so behind with this move. But join anyway. It's only $29. The membership will go up. I'm going to do a whole series next year on, I'm not going to tell you the title yet, but let's just say money healing. We're going to go deeper with this money healing, and pleasure is a gateway for that too. All right. Your name means going up. Let me look at some of these comments before I say goodbye to y'all. Tommy says, I have yet to put up decoration or buy a gift. I will not get caught up in this madness right now. Me either. And you know what? Since I've loosened my boundaries a little bit around it, I participate in it only as a ritual because it is a solstice season. Christmas is a season of solstice energy. And so if you are a woman who is standing in the core and center of yourself, this is a season for let me say this. The last 21 days of this year are very important. Normally, I'm running a program this year for you to take 21 days going all the way into the new year to amp up. This is the time to be doing forgiveness work. This is the time to be mindful not to let any cooties attach to you. If you are in my monthly masterclass, I'm going to give you the process and the prayer that Iyanla gave personally to a few of us to do. So I will be sharing that with those of you who are in there just as a bonus for being in it, because this is a season people are making their transition. This is a season where a lot of other energy is attaching to folks. Be mindful that there may be people around you who are not happy, who are quite depressed. And so you want to take care, because those of you who are empathic, may not know what it is that is jumping on you, so to speak, what energy you may be carrying that is not yours. And so thank you for saying that, Tommy, because I almost forgot. I got caught up in the pleasure zone, the power of the P, and inviting you all to close out the year with the power of the pussy with me, that I forgot to offer that caution, not just caution, but also care. Be very mindful in these next few days of the words that you speak out of your mouth about yourself and others. Be open to reconciliation, but also be open to being real and true. And there are things in our families, these family secrets, that baby, when we go into this and into next year, healing our relationship with money, I'm going to deal with these money curses. I'm going to deal with these things, these secrets, these family things that we are walking around with that is not allowing us to get in pleasure or stay in pleasure, and much less prosperity. So I'm going to keep on going through them. Hopefully I won't say another word after I see your comments. Janai says, I love belly dance. It's one of my favorite forms of self-care. Well, then I need to connect with you, honey, because when we start doing our live events, we need to get you in. Pleasure is a gateway to de-stress. Absolutely. If you're just coming in, go back and look at the beginning where I started talking about pussy. Next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about it. Yep, I'm going to be finishing the year every Wednesday. All right, so I love you all. There's nothing you can do about it. I'll put the link to join the masterclass for this month, and I look forward to connecting with you in other ways. I am doing natal chart readings for 111 for the remainder of the year. So come and get your natal chart reading so you can know what it is you need to get ready for 2018. And so again, join us in the monthly masterclass. I got some special stuff coming up for you. Love you, love you, love you. See you on